All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another edition of Around the Table, Politics 2020. I'm Stacy Schmitz. We only have a month to go before the end of this year, and who knew at this time last year at this time that the eyes of the nation would be on Georgia. And in Georgia, they're going to decide the balance of power in Washington. That's one of the topics we'll be discussing today on Around the Table. So to begin our discussion today, let me bring in our group of panelists, our analysts who are absolutely excellent in what they have to say. Joining us is former Republican Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett. He also served as the state attorney general and also as the U.S. attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. Joining us on the other side of the table is the former chairman of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, Jim Byrne. Jim also served as chairman of the Allegheny County Council and as mayor of Millvale. He is an attorney in town. On the other side of the table, we find Keith Schmitz. Keith's political background dates back to the Reagan campaign in the 80s. Keith was the state director for Pennsylvania Republican Senator Rick Santorum and also served on Santorum's presidential campaign in 2012. Keith now has his own consulting firm here in Pittsburgh. And now we turn to the great philosopher of Around the Table, Joe Mystic. Joe's name is familiar in Democratic politics around the state. He's had several roles in city government, including that of deputy mayor. Joe teaches law at Duquesne University, and you can read his weekly column on politics and life in the Trib. Thank you all for joining us. I trust all of you had a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Quiet, but yes.
It was quiet. And so we did what we were supposed to do, I guess. So now let's start with this first topic. That would be Georgia. 2 Senate seats are up for grab. If the Republicans maintain at least one of the seats, they will maintain control in the United States Senate. If the Democrats win both seats, it's a tie, 50-50, and then the vice president would be breaking any ties. Can this be any more important? I'm going to start with you, Jim.
Yes, I mean, as historic in of the significance of Mr. Biden's win in Georgia, it would be just as historic, in my opinion, if the Democrats would be able to pick up the 2 Senate seats. And all of us have talked about this at the time of the November 3rd election. What a moonshot it would be for us to even have a conversation like this. It will be difficult for the Democrats to get them both, but it is certainly not outside of the realm of impossibility for the same reasons that we won the state for Mr. Biden, and that is the continued implosion, in my opinion, of President Trump. He has made accusations in Georgia about rigged elections. He has attacked the Republican governor who supported him. He's attacked the Secretary of State, a staunch conservative who has supported him. And he has attacked many of the Republicans in charge of ballot counting. Republican Trump supporters have protested in Georgia, attacking members of their own party. The Democrats feel momentum down there. Now, in addition to Vice President, President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris, there are others on the ground there who are going to go down there and lobby hard for the 2 Democratic candidates. And looking at the preliminary numbers of the mail-in requests in the ground game, it's very similar to what we saw in September and October, which were advantage Democrats. So yes, it's a stretch, but based on the infighting of the GOP, led by Trump, and based on the surge and the enthusiasm of the Democrats, based on their historic win down there, it's not out of the realm of impossibility.
All right, Governor, I'm going to ask you, do you feel this same infighting within the Republican Party taking place in Georgia from your sources?
Well, I think there is some disagreement in positions and philosophies on this one. There are for want of a better description, the establishment Republicans down there. And then there are the Trump voters who vote Republican, whether they're registered or not as Republican. And I think those are 2 different groups. It's going to be very interesting to see how they go about this. The intensity of what's going to be going on down there, in the amount of people going down to visit it, all the celebrities that are headed down there. If I'm a Georgia resident, particularly if I'm a long-term Georgia resident, I would take a little offense at outsiders coming in to tell me how to vote. So we'll see how that is. I go back in history though, when I was growing up, Georgia was a Democrat state. When Republicans first started winning it, it was a shock. Well, now they've held it for 30 some years. Now it split. I think down ballot though, the Republicans still did well in Georgia. So we have these 2 seats up. Republicans only need 1. And I'm going to use a term that sometimes politicians talk about and campaign managers talk about. And you have to wonder whether this might happen down there. That the Republicans say, okay, make sure everybody votes for this one. Joe, I think we call that plunking up here, right?
Code plunking, yeah.
And you almost have to wonder whether you're going to see some organized thought to that of, okay, we only need 1. Let's make sure we win 1. That could irritate a number of people on the other side. And I'm not sure which one of the 2 that would be. I think it might be very hard for the Republicans to win both, but they got to win 1.
All right, Joe, your thoughts?
Well, I think Republicans are starting to act like Democrats used to be. They've turned on their own. It's a pretty astonishing thing to see. And feeling the fire in all this, of course, is President Trump. He's as far as the Democrats are concerned, he should just keep talking. He should keep ridiculing and criticizing the Republican governor and Republican Secretary of State, create chaos, create doubt about the trustworthiness of the electoral process down there. And lo and behold, the Democrats could pick up 2 seats. I tend to agree with the governor. I think that 1 seat is really what this is all about. And it's unlikely that either party can pick up both. But it's possible if Trump keeps talking.
All right, Keith, your thoughts?
Well, I'm not an odds maker, and I've not always called them. I've not always been accurate in my predictions, but I'll go out on a limb here. I don't think this race is going to be interesting. I think that Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue will win easily in the contest in January for the United States Senate, and we will sweep this southern state in the United States Senate. I'm there for a couple reasons. I'm there because of what I think is the balance of power in a lot of people's minds in America, and I think there is a sense of the Republican Party, which got 73 million votes with their standard bearer, would like to see a balance of power in the next 4 years. I also go to my dear friend, Governor Corbett. When you look at down ticket, the Republicans did very well in Georgia. And if you rank Republican organizations, and the Republican organization is what's going to be brought to bear now in this single race, these 2 races that they're laser focused on, I would say it's one of the top 5 Republican organizations in America. So that the largesse of that organization is going to come down and be brought to bear. And I think you'll see a healthy win by both of these candidates. Let me say one last thing, which is a little bit of history. The last time there was a runoff in the state of Georgia was after Obama swept the victory in 2008. And that is Saxby-Chambliss defeated Tim Martin by a whopping 15 or 16 percentage points. But only a month earlier, during the sweep of Obama and the strength of the top of the ticket, he had only edged out Martin by 3 points. The runoff, he beat him by 15. Look for a gap between these candidates and a healthy win by both United States senators.
Keith, I'm going to stay with you, and then I want to open, anybody can jump in on this. Jim brought up the fact that he felt that the president going down to Georgia is just adding to discontent among Republicans there. Do you think that's the case? Should he stay? I mean, should he campaign for these candidates, or should he stay in Washington?
He should campaign for the candidates. Listen, there's a Republican base and there's a Trump base, and they don't always blend. And you still have to motivate the Trump base, which includes some independents and disenfranchised Democrats and others. A lot of people said, listen, this was the outsider who could have ran as a Democrat or Republican and chose to run as a Republican. This isn't a by no means the standard bearer of the Republican cause. He is a standard bearer for the Trump cause. And those people do need to be properly motivated and reminded how important this race is. So yes, he should go to Georgia and ignite his base.
But
I agree with
I
Keith.
would argue with
He should
that
go.
to a certain extent. I would say go down there once and get out of there, because it's all about him whenever he goes somewhere. Let's be frank about that. And you really want to focus this on the future. He's not the future. You want to focus this on the future and the check, if you're the Republicans and the Trump people, the check that those two senators will have on President-elect Biden going very far to the left, as most people that I know that are worried about that think it's going to happen if they take over the Senate also.
I agree
I
with
think
Pete.
President Trump should move down there and stay there until this campaign is over, maybe even longer.
He's in Florida, Joe.
He's a he's a wild card. I think that the longer he's there, the more obvious it will become that he's created this tremendous split by attacking a respected Republican governor and a well-respected Secretary of State in Georgia, Republican Secretary of State. The longer he's there, the greater the schism. So he should stay.
I agree. Even one visit should actually be enough to do the trick, but the longer he stays, the better for us, I think.
Well, when he does go down multiple times and they both win handsome victories, I just want to hear from all of you on that particular.
I'll buy you a beer when that happens.
Yeah, well, I'll come over your house to get it.
Okay.
Go to his house, you get wine.
Yeah, right.
Let's move on to the president-elect for a moment. He is now beginning to name his cabinet. Jim, a long time ago, back in maybe even March or so, you were saying one of the most important things about Biden, if he were to be president, is who he's choosing for his cabinet. With the names you've heard so far, are you happy?
I am. I think they're historic, and the door is still open for more inclusion. I love the communication staff that he put together and that was announced in the last couple of days. A couple of those I had the pleasure of crossing paths with years and years ago as they were coming up. Tremendous talent. I appreciate the diversity. I appreciate all of the glass ceilings that he's shattering. One of the things I believe I had mentioned when we had that conversation earlier this year was the ability to have a cabinet that accurately represents the diversity of this great republic. He's doing that. I also think it will be important for him moving forward to have a cabinet and a kitchen cabinet and a group of advisors that includes not just the diversity of the country, but also the country itself as far as bipartisanship. Mr. Obama never hesitated to reach out to Republicans to put them on his team. Neither did Mr. Clinton. Senator Chuck Hagel from Nebraska was a great addition to the Obama team. I expect that as he continues to build a cabinet that reflects the country, he will also make choices of inclusion from the GOP, who also need to have a seat at the table to effectuate Mr. Biden's message of inclusion and everybody working together, irrespective of political or ideological differences.
Governor, I'm going to bring you in right away on this one, because if Mr. Biden is able to do what Jim is saying, and that is to bring in Republicans and use them in a position of power within his cabinet, will that work given the political divide we have in this country right now? And if a politician on the Republican side does choose to go work in the cabinet, what is his future at that point, or her future?
Or her future. Well, let's answer the second question first. Who can predict the future? You could go into that position at the end of your career, frankly, and say, yeah, I'll do this for 4 years or for 8 years. I think it depends upon the position that they go in. I don't think you're going to see it as a Secretary of State, obviously not the Secretary of the Treasury, but maybe somebody in transportation, maybe somebody in the energy field. That's a logical place for somebody to come in and say, look, I'm going to do public service. This is what I like to do. This is what I enjoy. But I don't think that somebody that goes into that level anymore is going to be looking to run for office. I don't think you'll see somebody young going in there as a Republican. I think it would be somebody more senior and further along in their career. I think it's good for the president-elect to do that. My observation is it seems like he's putting together a team around him that he's going to listen to. I make that in comparison to what we've had for the last 4 years. I know that when I had my team, my kitchen cabinet, my chief of staff, the deputy chiefs of staff, the cabinet, we were a very diverse cabinet, very diverse group. I think I had more women in my entourage that came with me and guided me that I listened to than probably any governor before me. And I think it was extremely important to have those different viewpoints coming to me. They didn't always agree, but they gave me information and I had to make the decision based upon what they gave me. We've not seen that for 4 years, frankly.
Joe, bringing in a Republican into the cabinet, does that really make any difference, do you think?
Oh, sure it does. I think perception-wise, it makes a huge difference with the American public. Joe Biden said that I'm not going to be a Democratic president. I'm going to be an American president. And if that's true, then the proof's in the appointments. It's very important that he have a bipartisan representation in his cabinet, and I suspect we're going to see that.
Keith?
Look for names like Cynthia McCain or former Ohio Governor Kasich to come up sooner rather than later.
All right, Keith, your thoughts?
I just had to take a pause after I heard those two names. Okay, I have a little heartburn. If I grab a Rolade, there's a reason for it. Anyhow, okay, here's what I think. To the victor, go the spoils. He has every right to pick the people he's comfortable with and surround himself with people. Hopefully he'll listen to him. But my problem is the same problem I had with him when he picked the vice president. As far as I'm concerned, I wish he'd want to told us months in advance he was picking Kamala Harris. I wish he'd have said, I'm going to pick the most qualified, the best candidate for vice president that this country has ever seen, and then pick Kamala Harris. The same thing goes with the cabinet. Listen, I praise the diversity. I praise the inclusion, the breakings of the glass ceiling, the inclusion of women and minorities. But don't talk about it like you're filling some kind of quota. Just say, I'm going to pick the best possible cabinet in the best interest of this administration and the country, and then pick women and minorities and all the people that he's picking. But I hate to make it look like he's checking some kind of box. He should be picking the best and brightest. And if he does, then he's going to find minorities and women in his cabinet.
Okay.
And that's what I think about that.
All right. We've got you on record now.
Got dead silence.
And I know, I expected somebody to come back in, but they didn't. All right. One of the things that still has to be decided, if indeed can be decided, and that is whether there should be another relief package. There is now some effort, some talk between the Trump administration and the Speaker of the House. It's supposed to take place today at some point. There is a group of senators on both sides who say something has to be done. Will there be something done, you think, in this lame duck session of the Congress?
There better be something done. I can't see Congress going home for Christmas, for the holidays, and having all these starving, struggling, desperate Americans without any chance of having some sense of normalcy through the holidays. There must be some sort of relief. And there's one person standing at the intersection, and that's Mitch McConnell. It's really up to him.
I'll argue with you on that.
He's not been very helpful in the past. And he's the guy who said that municipalities, we should just let them go bankrupt, principally municipalities in democratic areas, in the urban areas. I don't think that's the attitude America needs right now. And I sure hope he either changes his approach or somebody figures a workaround around Mitch McConnell. I don't know what that could possibly be, but he's the guy at the intersection.
Governor.
I said I argue with Joe on that. I think this is Senate versus House. This is McConnell and Schumer a little bit arguing with him, and Nancy Pelosi. The bill that's out there from the Democrats is a couple $1 trillion. The bill from the Republicans is what, about $500 billion, a little bit more. There's got to be somewhere to come to the middle. but I don't hear it from the media, and that's the only thing that we have. Are they talking about how do we get to the middle? What are the extremes on either end? Where can the Republicans come out and the Democrats go down? A couple $1 trillion at this point in time, before as we're going into another administration. I, as a Republican, if I were in the Senate, I'd go, whoa, let's pay for what we need right now. There are a lot of add-ons, I know, and I can't remember the details. I don't have the bill in front of me. There are a lot of add-ons in there that the Democrats in the House have put on that have really nothing to do with helping the people and the economy right now. It's long-term goals that they've always wanted. Let's take those out. We can debate that next year. You really want to get to it, let's get to the middle and what we can agree on.
I think if they don't get something done, and it's going to be blamed on Mitch McConnell, which will be advantage Democrats on those 2 Senate races. I'm encouraged to see bipartisan announcements in the Senate today about needing to get something done. If Mitch McConnell sits on that, the Democratic candidates in Georgia are going to hang that around his neck, and deservedly so, because that is where the obstruction is deservedly pointed. And then the Democrats can say, look, but for Mr. McConnell, we would have been able to get this done. But for these 2 seats, we would have been able to get you something by Christmas or the holidays. So advantage Democrats if they cannot get past this obstruction. It is solely on Mitch McConnell's shoulders that it rests.
Keith, I'm sure you totally agree with Jim once again.
Oh my God. Thank God it's just not the 2 of us. All right.
I wish it
Anyhow,
were.
I want to
quite
see
fr- I wish
that
it
at
were,
some
quite
future
frankly.
show. Yeah, just the 2 of you.
Instead of, listen, I'm not going to blame the Speaker of the House. I'm not going to blame the Majority Leader of the Senate. I'm just going to, hopefully I'll be praising them very soon. I hope I'll praise them both because they took the action that Mr. Mystic and everyone on this call continues to speak about, that we need it and we need it now. The fact is that what I said the last time we talked about this issue was small businesses particularly are hurting, and they're hurting badly. 2 of my favorite small businesses that I have frequented often in my life just closed this past week, one in Robinson and another in West End. Every week I get a call of another one failing, and not only closing, but closing permanently. And now because of the uptick of cases, you see further its restrictions being made at both the county and the state level around the country. And these restrictions mean less money into the coffers of small business people who are desperately trying to stay alive. We need another stimulus. We need it during the lame duck session, and we need that to focus on the job creators in America, and that is small business people.
Okay, good. Moving on to another subject, and this is one I'm going to probably bring up again when we record later in the end of this year and toward the inauguration. Governor, I'll start with you. How do you think this country is going to change under a Biden administration?
Boy, yeah, I'm going to go down and buy a lotto ticket after I say this. I think it's going to calm down. I think there'll be, some people on both sides of the aisle looking for a bit of calmness in everything that's out there. I don't anticipate seeing the president-elect trying to be on the forefront in the media every minute of the day, and let life get back to a little bit of normal. This has been a tumultuous 4 years. It's the only way I can describe it. And the people chose not to have another tumultuous 4 years. It's not going to get back to normal till we get past the coronavirus. And when we get that solved, but I think you will see some calm. There will still be the division in the parties. There will still be fighting in Congress and in the state houses and in the municipalities and so forth. But I think there will be a air of, let's catch our breath now and see if we can calm down. I have to say that the president-elect comes at this, when you watch him on stage, as trying to be that calming influence. The term Uncle Joe is well used when it comes to President-elect Biden. The 2 times that I've been around him, he's very affable. I assume he's sincere. I don't know he's sincere, but he comes off as being very approachable and somebody you can have a beer with. And I think that people maybe on both sides of the aisle are going to say, okay, let's get past that. We'll go back to war next year, at the off elections, and then we'll do it again in 2 years. We'll do that, but it's going to be a little calmer than it has been for the last 4 years.
What you see is what you get. I was blessed to have a lot of interaction with him in my tenure as a county and a state chairman. My most recent interaction with him was a couple of years ago when he marched in the Labor Day parade. I was marching in the parade myself, and I had my older son Jimmy with me, and Darren Kelly, who's running the Labor Council, was walking the vice president down to start the parade, and I just gave Darren a quick wave and said, my son would like to meet him, and Mr. Biden heard that and he stopped. Who wants to meet me? And he stopped. He walked over. My son was on the Millville Junior Council at the time, and he struck up a 2 or 3 minute conversation with him, and they were behind on the clock. And it was genuine, it was sincere, and everything I've seen and heard about him about his sincerity and his generosity and his genuineness manifested at that moment. And it was an inspiration to watch, and I believe what I see and what I hear because I've seen it myself.
I agree with the governor. I think that the changes we see certainly will be stylistic changes. Substantive changes, we can all sit around here and predict what's going to happen substantively, and really, we have no way of predicting that. There could be a national or international crisis at any moment, and that would create some turmoil out of the gate. But I think that George Costanza from Seinfeld, who used to look to the sky and say, "Serenity now," is going to get his way, at least in the initial months and years of this administration. There'll be some serenity, and that will be a welcome change to members of both parties.
Any thoughts, Keith?
In the 10 presidential elections that I've been involved in my lifetime, dating back to Reagan's, every year it seems like we commiserate the same things. Oh my God, this campaign started so early, and every year it got longer and longer and longer and longer. And this one, I think, almost has lasted over 2 years, on which the lead story locally, the lead story nationally, the lead story on the internet was presidential politics, 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 politics. I just welcome the fact that once we get through the runoff in Georgia, I welcome a new conversation in America, because this particular conversation has divided us as a country in ways that none of us are proud of. So I hope in some way, shape, or form at the beginning of a new administration, we could just start talking about other things and start easing the divide that is so stark in America today.
Well stated, and I think that should be a good point for us to wrap up for the day. Gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for being with us once again on Around the Table Politics 2020, and maybe we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
Take care,
Have a
Stacy.
great week.
See y'all.